full of stats.
Engage Burnham.
I'm your new wingman.
We will win! Because we have...
Welcome to CommLink.
Hello and welcome back to the CommLink Podcast. I'm Stub and I'm joined by Silvius.
Hey.
And our first ever guest, CaptainSKYRIDER. How's it going?
Oh, sevens.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you for
being here.
Yeah.
SKYRIDER, do you want to give us a little rundown of what you do, where we can find you? Tell us a little bit about your content.
My name is CaptainSKYRIDER. I stream on Twitch in the mornings for America, 4 to 5 days a week. I shoot for 5 days, but half the time it goes to about 4. And my content is pretty much all over the place. It depends on what I feel like doing that day, but mostly lately focused on combat since we were in Pyro, honestly.
Nice. And you got to play some Pyro, didn't you?
As much as I possibly could. I am so brokenhearted that it's gone.
Stub and I didn't get the chance to experience it, so we're living vicariously through you.
Yeah,
I love it. Can't wait till we go back.
Stars didn't quite align for us, but glad you had a good time with it. How many sessions did you get with Pyro while the channel was up?
I believe 4.
Okay, so you were able to spend a decent amount of time in Pyro.
Absolutely, and I got probably 6 to 8 hours each session.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When you first load into Pyro, say the first half hour or so, once you've created your character and you're actually in, like, what strikes you the most in contrast to Stanton when you're in Pyro? Like, does the overall atmosphere change for you? The feel of the game change any?
Well, I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah. Because
the open world, the lawless PvP aspect of it made it feel like it was a dangerous video game. Like it was like I think the way Star Citizen wants to be. Star Citizen, they talk about how they want to create conflict a lot in the verse. And Pyro seemed to be a place where you were actually forced to work together. And I love multi-crew. I love working together with the community, with my org. And the first thing that I felt when I got into Pyro was just the general having to be aware of my surroundings, situational awareness, basic being worried about somebody coming in and killing you all the time. Because I feel like in Stanton, we're kind of lulled to sleep with all the armistice zones and how safe it is over there.
Yeah.
Right.
So the first thing I noticed is that my gamer brain was awake.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Felt great.
Yeah, in Stanton, you can, there's comm everywhere, and you can get very comfortable just, not watching your back or flying solo and kind of tune out, honestly, turn on a podcast, some music, whatever, go salvaging. But it sounds like Pyro is a lot more intense and involved.
Yeah, you got to have your ears up in the wind. You got to be ready for anything. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean the DayZ comparison's been made a lot, right? But it sounds like rightfully so. There's that element of always having to look over your shoulder, or at least you should be.
And and what that does is it forces you into multi-crew, which I love multi-crew way more than solo. And so when you're actually forced into it, you can tell your gut wants to get together with other players. There's this instinct of coming together for safety. I loved it.
Yeah, it's that strength in numbers, right?
Strength in numbers. That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
I have to join you next time.
That'd be great. I love it. The more, the merrier. I get because in my community, my organization, I like to have a lot of fun and like to be chill until it's time to get serious. And then it's serious on 10 and get it done. So like we go into a location on Pyro, and we were 100% serious securing the area. And then once the area is secure, we go back to being goofballs.
It's the way to do it.
Pretty fun. Yeah.
Business first, then pleasure, right?
Yeah. You can't really do that in Stanton, like I was saying, you kind of turn your brain off in Stanton. It's too safe. Funny enough, a lot of my community members tell me how when they play, they're usually watching a movie or watching a stream or watching videos on the second monitor. You can't do that, Pyro.
I do that a lot. I'm definitely guilty of that. I always have a stream
Yeah.
pulled up while I'm playing or something.
Yeah, it's intrinsic to the nature of Stanton for sure.
All right. So, glad you had a good time with that. Looking forward to the preview channel coming back soon. TM trademark. But we're going to be taking a look back at 2023 on today's episode. And we're going to begin by just sort of refreshing ourselves with some of the major updates that made it into Star Citizen for 2023. We're going to go off the list here real quick and then discuss our feelings on the year. So we'll start off with 318, which hit March 10th of this year. Gave us Rivers, Sand Caves, Grey Cat Racetrack, Cargo Refactor, updated SPK, Racing, Orison Missions, Salvage Hull Stripping, and PES was introduced to Star Citizen with 318. 319 in May, that gave us the new updated Loreville, Salvage Contracts, Ghost Hollow PvP mission, Tractor Beam. 320 in September gave us Seraphim Station, Arena Commander updates, cargo updates, and they introduced large SU containers. 321 in October gave us new Crusader platforms, retrieve consignment missions, vehicle tractor beams, still evidence SPK mission, ship trespassing, data heist missions, and then 322 that just went live today. Just really moments before we started to record this episode. We're getting hair updates, derelict settlements, structural salvaging, cargo containers, new arena commander maps, a lot in 322 as well with the Sentaki I and the X1. And if you check the roadmap, it's not been committed yet. It's not currently in, but the replication layer testing is still tentative for 322. So we'll see if that makes it in. But
Hopefully.
hopefully. And looking back at 2023, it hasn't always necessarily felt like it, but I do think we really got a lot this year.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Don't
joke.
forget about all the vehicles we got too. Vulture,
So yeah,
Scorpius and Terry's, the RSI Lynx, all of the Fury variants, the whole C, the F8, the A1, the C1, the Tumbrel Storm, the SRV, Cutter Scout, Cutter Rambler, I guess today too, just came out. The Sulin, Santakiai, and the X1. So that's a thick list.
yeah. So for me, when I think about 2023, let's say pre-Citizen Con, but even a bit before that, let's say like right up until 320 hit, 2023 for me wasn't a good year for Star Citizen up to that point. Right, because 318's launch was so problematic. There were several issues when PES was introduced. A lot of people were just in a spot to where they couldn't even log into the game for long periods of time. 319 a bit better, but not by much, honestly.
It was rough. First half of the year was rough.
Yeah, it was rough, but that was on the technical side. But so when I'm thinking about 318, I'm thinking about all those frustrations, but there was also more rivers and the cargo refactor and the updated SPK and the Orison. Like there was big stuff added.
Right.
It's just sometimes I feel like it can get a little tainted by the negatives.
Yeah, the persistent entity streaming kind of overwrote the excitement of all the new stuff that came in.
Exactly. Yeah, but I guess it's necessary, right? Like you don't want a launch to go that way, but it's new tech. It needed to be introduced at some point. It was a growing pain. It wasn't fun, but I do see that it was necessary.
Yeah, at this stage, it's great that they're still breaking the game because that means they're pushing forward. They're not happy with the way it is. It's not a final product, and they are pushing forward to something way bigger than most people can imagine.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
all knew it was
I
going to be
agree.
a rough patch when it was
Yeah.
about to be launched, but I don't think anybody expected it to be quite as bad as it was.
Well, remember they said persistent entity streaming touched everything.
Right.
So yeah, when you have tech going into your game that touches everything, you should expect it to break pretty bad.
Yeah, we've had dumpster fire updates in Star Citizen before, but that one felt more like the entire landfill was on fire. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it
but
was rough.
they put it out though, so they eventually got the game to a better place. It's not
Well, that's
still not
good.
perfect, but
Yeah. Persistent entity streaming is just one of those things that shows that Chris Roberts' vision is bigger than most of ours.
right.
Yeah, 100%. So
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
I think they learned their lesson a little bit with 318. I think it was a good, maybe not a wake-up call, but I think we saw them kind of trying to mitigate that happening again with the preview channel by putting
Yes.
Pyro on the preview channel, by
Agreed.
putting replication layer on the preview channel, by putting server meshing probably eventually on the preview channel. That's all going to be separate from live, so we don't get a absolute shitstorm when they do move it to live like we did with 318.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And so,
agree.
you know, in that way, that's just one more layer of how I think 318 was a learning experience for CIG. And I'm happy that they've started to make some changes, like having the tech preview channel for a major significant update like Pyro. I just hope that they remember the lesson long term too. You know, and that we don't get to a point again with the game to where people literally couldn't play for weeks in some cases. You know,
Yeah,
and
that is no joke. And I agree with you 100%. I think they did learn their lesson, and the tech preview channel proves it. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So it's good to see that. But, you know, I think on the whole, where we currently are, you know, now that we're in December and halfway through the month, unbelievably, I feel pretty good about 2023. And I have to say, a lot of that has been, I think, influenced by some of the CitizenCon hype while looking forward to 2024, but also some of the things that we got this year were really exciting. Like for me personally, Arena Commander updates, for example, like for years, every now and then we would hop into, say, Star Marine and be like, this is kind of neat, but it's broken. And I just kind of wish CIG would show it some love and give it a little update and maybe a new map or something. And it finally happened this year.
Yeah, I played it all day today. Arena Commander in spaceships and FPS, and it was a blast.
It's so much fun.
It's
So
a
what?
blast.
Yeah, what moves were you playing today?
Oh, I played Master Modes today. I really wanted to jump
Yeah.
into Master Modes. I even fought Sylvius,
I
who
hopped in
is
there
a
for a
pretty
little
good
bit.
aim. Be careful, you get in front of his spaceship.
I haven't
He aims
done
pretty
any
well.
dogfighting in a while, so that was my
Yeah.
first time really dogfighting in a little bit, and especially the first time with master modes. So I like how it's feeling so far.
Yeah. Some of the HUD elements, it seems like the pips disappear very easily, and the indicator of the enemy spaceship when it goes off screen, how it has that arrow, that red arrow. I lost that a lot, and I lost my pip a lot. There are now two little tiny circles, which I don't mind this anymore, because this is like the old system. The original pip used to have two different pips based on the projectile velocities of whatever your loadout was, and they went away from that for years, and they're going back to it now. I don't mind that so much, but the circles are very, very small, and they're easy to lose in the background of all the colors of what Star Citizen is.
They really are, especially for
But it was
somebody
fun.
like Stub. He's color challenged. So
Yeah.
I'm red green colorblind, so any red in the UI, if things are crazy and hectic, can get lost very easily for me. I can struggle to, you know, if you've got a enemy targeted right and then you get behind you, I'm trying to find that little red arrow and looking all over, and it just takes forever.
That I spent a lot of time flailing around like I didn't know what I was doing with my flight sticks, just trying to find that arrow, because sometimes I would even pass the person that I was targeted, and the background colors of Star Citizen are so bright that all the new UI just blended right in and went right on by.
hopefully the new MFDs and updated HUD takes care of a lot of that, because we've been having those issues, especially like planet side where it's really bright, switching between like brightness and darkness and not being able to see stuff. I really hope that's figured out with the new HUD and MFD updates and everything, because that's definitely one of the, not like most needed things, but it definitely, something has to change for it, because we can't keep going like it is, obviously.
Yeah, 100%. Some sort of options to increase, decrease brightness, or to change colors. Like we're talking about, if you're color challenged, it'd be nice to be able to change the HUD elements to colors that
Yes.
you can identify.
Yeah. That's one
That
thing I
would be
liked
really
about
nice.
Elite Dangerous. It didn't really change like your crosshairs and stuff, but in Elite, if you remember, Stub, you could go in the like files and change your values and change like the layout or the color of your cockpit and stuff.
I
So,
do. Yep.
I doubt we ever
I
get
bet you
anything like
CIG
that.
does that. I bet you
You
eventually.
think so?
There's so much. There is literally half of this game is on the back burner while they try to get the tech finished, right?
Right.
And I guarantee there's people back there. There's a lot of gamers making this video game, and they care about stuff like that, but they're tasked with much bigger priorities right now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really what it is, right? Like those additional accessibility options would be fantastic at any point, but while they're still building onto a lot of the foundation of the game, still, it's going to be much later, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we still don't have server meshing, and it's
Yeah.
hard for a lot of new players to understand that we got 100 people in an entire solar system. Star Citizen is barren and empty.
Yes.
And that core tech is so important for they call it, how many times have we said, oh, now the floodgates are going to open. Oh, now the floodgates are going to open. When they actually get dynamic server meshing working correctly, I tell you, then the floodgates will open, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because you think about even the AI. The AI can't perform, even the subsumption that they've written for the AI cannot perform. When you have a whole solar system, what they say, 600,000 entities being loaded in, plus people in their spaceships, it's too much. We're on great servers too, right? We're on Amazon servers, some of the best servers in the world, and they're just barely squeaking by half the time.
Yeah.
So
Struggling.
things like HUD elements and how to tune those and color those, I personally believe are not priorities yet either, but I'd love to see them.
Yeah. Although thinking about it, if things like accessibility options would be included when you're saying your game is feature complete, I wonder if they are in Squadron 42 and may end up being brought into Star Citizen. It just hasn't really been talked about yet, but it could make it potentially into an update this year if that would be included with Squadron's feature complete list.
I guess that it makes you wonder what falls under feature complete.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
is the HUD element changing colors an actual feature to them at this point? I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah.
But switching back to our talk about 2023, I like I was saying, overall, I think I'm in a good place with 2023. I feel positive about it. There were some down moments for sure, but where we are right now, I'm happy with Star Citizen and am happy with CIG's performance, especially in the second half of the year. How about you guys? How's 2023 vibing with you?
I'm with you 100%. I know that persistent entity streaming put a dark cloud over everything.
Yes.
But 2023 is the year Squadron 42 got complete and teams started moving over to the persistent universe, which is the answer to all of our prayers. And we can tell in the last 2 to 3 months that they're doing quality of life updates. I mean, you look at the new derelict settlements. I mean, spaceships are coming out. All these teams are starting to do stuff that we care about because we're playing the persistent universe, not Squadron 42. And that to me is the 2023 is the year that CIG gets that gear shifter into fourth gear. You know what I'm saying?
Jared
Finally.
Jared keeps saying through tweets, and he said it on ISC today, that he thinks 2024 will be a watershed year for Star Citizen. So I'm going to hold him to that.
I believe it too, 100%.
If they get all those things in, like they're talking about, hell, if they just get the star map in, I would be happy.
Yes.
But yeah,
How long have you guys been in Star Citizen? When did you guys back?
Oh man, 2019.
Ooh, 2019.
Yeah,
2014 here.
2014. I'm 2013.
Oh, nice.
And I've been obsessed with this game. I built my first computer simply to log into the Hangar module.
Really?
that's
Yeah.
wild.
So Star Citizen got you into PC gaming?
No, it was actually PlanetSide, the original
Okay.
PlanetSide, because my
Oh, yeah.
friends played it. But I bought a Dell computer from one of my other friends for like $250. And when the Hangar module came out, that computer would not load up the Hangar module. And I spent all my money building my own computer simply to see my 315p. And I have footage of that thing.
That's
I
great.
remember those days.
Yeah.
It really has come a long way, hasn't it? Like since
It
those
has.
Hangar days.
That's exactly why I brought that up. Why I believe
Yeah.
2024 is a watershed year. I've seen CIG going. You look at their original podcast. We're in an empty room in a 2-story house. I mean, to me, CIG is a garage band who's as big as Metallica now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
In
But
10
on their own
years.
label, not beholden to executives or,
And Chris
producers.
Roberts tried. He tried to go to the big game makers, and they're like, "Nah, we want control over it. We want it this way." And he's like, And I'm so glad he did. I'm so glad. I'm so
Same.
happy with what we got. Imagine in 2014, the original pitch for the persistent universe in Star Citizen was a lot like Starfield. Where you had loading screens and there was no, everything was physicalized. So to me, the Star Citizen that we are playing started in 2014. That's when they scrapped the old idea and started over. They want Chris Roberts is like, all right, if you guys are going to give me this much money, then let's make a whole 3D physicalized universe. And I'm so glad.
And if I
that he
remember
did.
right, people voted on that too, right? The community voted. If I don't want to speak out of school, but I'm pretty sure I'm remembering that at some point a vote happened, because then there was also that period of time with all the refunds that were happening at that time as well. I think they did that. I'm gonna have to go back and look that up. But I think there
You
was a
might be
community vote.
right, but I'm willing to bet Chris had his mind made up.
Oh yeah.
He a lot of people talk about, they say things like, oh, CIG doesn't know where they're going. I've been with this from 2013. I watched every single 10 for the chairman as they happened. I was addicted to it. I wanted to know what Chris had to say. And the reason that show stopped is because all the questions were already answered,
Yeah.
and they are on track for what he said 10 years ago. And it's even better and it's even bigger as we go. We keep throwing money at them. And there's a lot of geniuses on this project. A lot of geniuses. All they need is money and time.
Yeah.
we're
Time
giving
is
it to him.
I will. I'll keep giving him money. I've given him too much.
I think we all have at this
And
point.
it's gonna keep coming from me. Star Citizen is
Yeah.
my home. I love it.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons we started this podcast, and because I mean we've taken breaks from it, every now and again, and I've only been in it for about 5 years now, but I truly think it can be the game that I play for a very long time, and
Potentially forever, right?
yeah, potentially. I mean, I don't see any reason for them to ever stop updating Star Citizen, even after release. So it's
Right.
it's something you can. I don't know. I'm a degenerate, and I consume Star Citizen news all day, every day. So I know where you're coming from, saying you were watching all the videos and just wanting to hear what Chris said. And I wish they'd bring those back, because I've just recently started going back and watching some of those old videos just to kind of compare to what they say today, and just see
It's
how
funny
far
if
it's
you
come.
if you watch some of those 10 for the chairman, you'll be blown away to know that the same questions are being asked and the answers are still the same on like Inside Star Citizen or Star Citizen Live. You look at people like John Crew and he can barely answer those questions anymore. He's like,
Right.
I've already answered them,
Yeah. Yeah. We
And,
all just
and
wanted to
they,
be here.
yeah. They talk about the pillars. They've been talking about the pillars for a long time. And those pillars still are not finished. And a lot of people can't see that. Star Citizen is so amazing and it's so beautiful. It's deceivingly close to finish. And the way I see it is Star Citizen is still more empty than it is full, but they are still heading towards exactly what I thought they were telling us we were going to get years ago.
Yeah, I would say the game's maybe not even halfway done with all the stuff they want to eventually put in.
I agree, 100%. I agree.
if-
Our
if-
spaceships aren't even halfway done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If people
We don't have-
continue to support and to play, I think it's open-ended how long the game can be supported post full release or 1.0, just by nature of what it is, right? The space is big. Spoiler alert, everybody.
Yeah.
So, if they ever, say hypothetically, we're supposed to get 100 systems, right? But if we do get to that point, they could do DLC or whatever with additional systems. They're going to continue to sell ships, most likely, right?
Oh, they'll
Like-
just continue to update beyond that 101 systems, 110
Yeah.
systems. They've already created tools that can procedurally generate entire solar systems. And of course, they're very generic and you got to go in and you got to work parameters and stuff. But you
Right.
and I, we love gaming. We love this universe. And I'm willing to bet that if you gave us that program right here and gave me a week to work on it, I could punch out a pretty good solar system for you.
Yeah.
So someday we're going to get 1 or 2 solar systems a patch. And I bet you beyond 5 years from now, we'll be getting more than that per patch.
Right.
Because the procedural generation to generate what they need to happens very, very, very quickly. And a lot of star systems don't have new Babbages and they don't have ArcCorps. That's why they picked Stanton. Stanton is so diverse and very hard to develop. If you develop Stanton correctly, then you have developed the tools to make 95% of the rest of the star system. And they're going to have to put out more than, think about it, if they put out 10 star systems a year right now, then that map isn't done for another decade. So if you
Right.
start to think about 1 a patch, we're talking about 25 years. Chris Roberts wants to play this game. He wants to see it finished. And there's going to be a time where we get 2 or 3 star systems a patch, mark my words.
I was going to say too, because talking about getting to 100 and then also the procedural generation that they're going to be implementing as well. And then we were also saying that some of it's going to be maybe barren. To me, like that makes sense, right? Not every system is going to be highly populated. Not every system is going to have planets that are going to have major landing zones on them. But to me, that's such an opportunity for the player base to build on the game with, base building and being able to create our own, in-game player communities and sort of, I hope we see the game get to a point to where we're sort of not terraforming, but we are the ones colonizing planets,
Right. I think it can get there too.
Yeah, that would be great. And then also, as you're introducing more systems, that gives you the opportunity to introduce, say, additional alien races. And then when you do that, all of a sudden, hey, here's this lore-based opportunity to come up with more ship manufacturers. And then you sell more ships, and it can just go on and on and on for as long as it's profitable and for as long as they want to keep it going.
Yeah, I think they can, and I think they will. I don't think interest in this is going to fade in the sci-fi community, because sci-fi is kind of a free ticket for believable fantasy. You can do whatever you want, and it's believable because it says sci-fi, right?
And-
Water worlds, dinosaur worlds. We can have whales flying around in space, and that is ridiculous fantasy. That's World of Warcraft when you really think about it. But since it says sci-fi, we can do it. And Chris Roberts has proven that he might be the king of the nerds. Not only is he the king of the nerds in fantasy, but he's actually making it happen. And I think it will go on, because when you think about the fantasy and the sci-fi actually giving you liberty to make that fantasy believable, you can do whatever you want. It can keep on going. And you look at Star Trek, Star Wars, The Expanse, you look at all of these things, and you pretty much have, an open credit card to do whatever you want to in lore. Whatever you want. It can go on forever.
Yeah. Endless possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beauty of the genre.
Yeah.
And with Star Citizen being as sandboxy as it is, I think people are going to stick around for decades, and I don't think that's ridiculous to say at all, because it's already happening with games.
I
Well, I
agree.
mean, what, like you mentioned World of Warcraft, that's been around for 20 years now or whatever. There's, EVE Online, I think, still has a very passionate player base. You can go through different examples. People have even brought games back from the dead, right?
Right.
Like Star Wars Galaxies has emulators out there. So I think that as long as everything comes together with Star Citizen and they continue to stay on track, and it really does feel like development for the PU has really been revving up since Squadron 42 has been feature complete, and teams have been moving over, you know, as long as everything just stays on the rails, I really do think we'll be talking about Star Citizen in 20, 30, 40 years. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. And let's be honest, 90% of us are here for the persistent universe, whether Squadron 42 is being developed or not. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And when they start actually developing, building, polishing, and populating the persistent universe, it's going to attract so many gamers. It's going to be just an endless community. And then they're really, because we always talk about, you can't get around it when you're making a project like this. This project, making Star Citizen, I compare to going to the moon. It takes just as much money and just as many geniuses. I'm telling you, right? But when they get the actual persistent universe, the reason that we're here is how many of us just fantasized as a kid to live in Star Wars, to live in Star Trek, to wake up on the Enterprise and look out and see the stars going by. You just dream of it. And this game is the closest that we're going to get in our lifetime. It really is. And when they start polishing it and we start populating it with creatures on the planets and science gameplay and crafting and base building and all this stuff that your average non-sweaty gamer wants to do, it's going to attract so much money. And when they get that money, Chris Roberts is just going to start expanding what he can do with it. That's what I think.
Oh yeah, I think you made a good point there, that this is probably the closest we're going to get to that kind of experience in our lifetime. Because if you think about it, this has already been being worked on for 10 plus years now. If somebody else, like a AAA game, even if you you can throw as much money as you want at a project, but you can't increase the amount of, you can't make it develop quicker, no matter how many people you have, no matter how much money you throw at it. And I honestly don't think until we see Star Citizen as a success, we won't see other companies attempting to make anything like this. But I think once we do see it successful, a lot of companies will try and make something similar. But like we're saying, that'll take another 10, 15, 20 years. So
yeah,
it all depends on if those other companies have a Chris Roberts or not.
Yeah, and without Chris, he's the visionary here. So I do think it will be that game we can all play until the rest of our lives.
Yeah, 100%. I can't wait.
In the more near term, though, what are we looking forward to with 2024? So we touched on some of the things that Jared mentioned. No, the star map is a big one for everyone. But was there anything else that they've talked about for next year that we're looking forward to in particular? For me,
number one for me is base building.
Yeah, base building's going to be huge.
Yeah, for
And
me
the
too.
reason why, sorry, I interrupted you twice.
No, you could.
The reason why base building for me is I've always wanted to live a space life. I don't have a specific thing. Like I don't want to be a pirate. I don't want to be a cargo hauler. No, I don't have any specific thing. I want to live in the universe. But having my own space house with my own giant space TV and giant space couch and all that stuff is the hub of the reason why I do cargo for money and the reason I do salvage for money. That is my motivation, essentially. That's why I'm excited about that the most.
Yeah, we've talked about it on here a few times. Is they have to answer the question of why we're doing all these things. Why are you cargo hauling? Why are you mining? Why are you being a pirate? And I think base building will start to be like one of the most driving forces in answering that question is what do you do with all your money? And I've talked to Stub about it. I didn't sign up for Star Citizen for combat. I didn't sign up. I enjoy the combat, don't get me wrong. I didn't sign up to be a cargo hauler. Like you said, I want to live a life in the stars. And, one day I might want to go cargo hauling. One day I might want to go mining. One day I just want to chill around and, hang out with my friends at my base. So I do think that base building is definitely going to be a big first step in answering the question of why we do all these things.
Yeah. It's the fun reason of why we're doing it all.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun in survival games building my own base. I love it.
Mm-hmm. I do too. I know Stubbs not the biggest crafter or builder in games. He's more combat oriented than either of us here. But yeah, I think
I will say though, I do like player to player business transactions though. And like I mentioned, for instance, Star Wars Galaxies earlier, that there's some emulators running and people are still playing the game. And when I played that game back on live, I was never really interested in crafting, and not just in that game specifically, but I'm just not a big crafting gameplay person typically. But what I would do is, as I was going around and doing missions and getting different goodies that that didn't necessarily want to keep for my character, but I thought I could make some coin off of, I would go put down a player building. I would put a vendor in there, and I would have like a little general store. So I was making money doing my missions and playing the character how I wanted to. But when my inventory would get full, I would go make a deposit at the store and, make money that way as well. And I'm looking forward to doing similar things in Star Citizen. Like, personally, I don't want to do a lot of crafting, but as I happen upon things that I don't want or necessarily need, I love the idea of having a space general store of, here's some cool weapons that I found or some armor that I don't need, but other people might find useful, or, maybe you're selling some ship components that you've, looted or whatever the case is. Some sort of way to make money even when you're not online is something
funny
that
you
I
say
enjoy,
that. Yeah. But I think they have alluded to them wanting to not let people make too much passive income. And
Right.
that's exactly what that is. I think we're going to have player shops and stuff like that, but you're going to have to man it yourself a lot. Or something like it's only available when you're online or something. They really don't want that same idea as Galaxies for some reason. Even though it was a blast, I played Galaxies too.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
But I'm really, really hoping, that we have this entire NPC universe that is always going to be larger and bigger than the player base. So it's always going to set the bottom line for everything. But I'm hoping that players can own anything an NPC can own, and our economy can work within it. Because I'd rather go to shops with humans than NPCs. If they do
Yes.
things like that, I would never see an NPC again. I don't really care, I'm not even looking forward to NPC people in my ship. I want people.
Yeah, they haven't really talked about AI crew in a while.
Yeah, still going to happen though. Every time they do talk about it, it's pretty short and like, yep, that's planned.
Yeah, they're definitely planning it. I probably
2
won't
more
use
years.
it a whole lot, but Yeah. Maybe one day.
Yeah, it depends on the quote unquote balance of how it all works. They've always said that the NPCs are never going to be, they're going to be about as good. They're going to be capped at your average player, right? They're never going to be elite at anything. And when I think about multi-crew in a ship, right? And you get into combat, whether it's PvP or the Nine Tails, rough and ready, whatever, that your spaceship is going to, some of the the power plant's going to go down. There's going to be a fire. There's going to be all these things that are happening at the same time, and your NPC is not going to know how to prioritize that the way my human crew is, right?
Right.
There's no way you're going to be able to micromanage an NPC crew and be half as effective as a human crew.
Yeah, they
It's not gonna
definitely have
work.
to. They definitely have to balance that correctly, and not only do they have to balance the ships and the FPS weapons and all the components, but they definitely have to figure out how to make AI crew like usable. But like you said, you don't want it to be better than a
It
real
has to,
person.
yeah. It has to fit into this fun place that we don't know what that is. What is the NPC players do enough so that we're not just relying on the NPC players to play the game for us, or they don't want to go on the other side where it's over tedious to look after these NPCs, right? It's got to find that fun place, and then you can decide, are your NPCs just your janitors and your cooks, or are your NPCs also your gunners and your engineers and stuff like that?
Well,
It's tough to conceive of where the fun balance is.
yeah, and I wouldn't want to be in their shoes having to balance all the stuff that they're working on.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you can conceive of all the things that you want in the game, but not even the creator of this game can actually see the very specific things and specific instances that makes one thing more fun than the other. You just have to play with it a little bit and see where things go out of bounds and where things really hit the spot, and then try to aim for that.
Yeah, it
That's
has
the
to be
great
a
thing
lot of
about-
trial and error.
That's the
right?
great thing about alpha. They can put it in, we test it, and then if it's not good, nobody likes it, they'll change it. So
Yep.
Yeah, and that's such an important point to remember when approaching Star Citizen. I think I'm guilty of forgetting this as well. We are testing a game in active development, right? So, you sit down and you pull up the launcher and you're like, I'm going to play. And yes, you are going to play, but you're also testing. You might not be reporting, but you are testing.
Yeah.
And, when you're testing and you're experimenting, things are going to be in flux and are going to have to, you're going to need to have readjustments and rebalances on a continual basis for a long period of time. And when it comes to the balance of AI crews, Star Citizen is a multiplayer game. And I want to play it with other real players, but I know there are solo players out there that want to do as much solo as they can as possible. And I want them to still be able to enjoy it too. And so if I'm a solo player, I think it's reasonable to expect competent NPCs, but I don't think it would be reasonable for me to think that if I have one of the fattest space wallets out there, that I could just hire this hyper elite crew and just become untouchable.
Right.
They've got to be decent, but they can't be god tier. They just
no
can't.
one person should be able to like solo an Idris. You shouldn't be able to
Yeah.
pull your Idris and hire all your AI crew and just roll around just killing everyone. There definitely has to be a cutoff point there where you can put them on your guns, you can have an engineer or two here or there, but if you don't have a decent amount of real people, like you can't micromanage that much.
Yeah. They've balanced a lot of things already in the game around the solo player, but the heart of the game is not like that. It's an open world universe where we have spaceships in it that are 5 stories tall.
Yep.
I mean, the intrinsic nature of the entire project is the more you get together, the happier you are, I mean, you find that out in Pyro. Just go to Pyro and try to solo a Corsair. Good luck.
The only thing I hate about multi-crew right now is I've heard Burks refer it to as bugs per minute. And
Yeah.
everybody deals
Yep.
with a certain amount of bugs every minute, and if you're competent and you've played before, you can usually get around them pretty easily. But as soon as you add 3, 4, 5 plus people, and each one of you is running into a bug like every 2, 3, 5 minutes, it just gets to that point where it's hard to get a bunch of people together and enjoy the game, because sometimes you play Star Citizen and sometimes it plays you. And I hope we're talking about 2024, and more than anything, I want it to get to that point where I can tell my gamer buddies, like, hey, there's a free flight going on, come play this game with me, you'll have a good time. Whereas right now I'm like, don't touch this, don't just you can watch me play it, watch somebody else play it, but unless it takes a certain type of gamer, a certain type of person to play Star Citizen right now. So I hope more than anything,
100%.
it gets to that point where I can tell my normal friends that aren't, down for this buggy punishment every time they play that, hey, come check this out and it'll be a good time.
Yeah. It is exhausting is the word that I use, trying to run multi-crew most of the time in Star Citizen. And what is exhausting is hearing newer players talk about bugs that we've been experiencing for years as if it's the first time you've ever experienced it, and you got to hear it on and on and on. When new players can talk about the game more than the bugs, then we're in a new
Yes.
world. Yeah.
I hope a lot of these updates this next year, just like EVA, updated ladders, mantling, stuff like that, star map, just things that can make your day-to-day experience just hard to deal with sometimes. Hopefully that gets
100%.
ironed out, and
Yeah, people falling through the floor, people falling out of the elevators, people falling out of your spaceships. It's a simple growing pains of a game that's actually pioneering its own universe. It's typical growing pains when you look at it, but it is hard to run a multi-crew because the more people you get together in the same space, the more bugs everybody experiences. It compounds upon itself and it gets rough. I want to do multi-crew all the time, but many patches have slapped me in the side of the head and said, no, Skyrider, you just can't.
yeah.
But I don't think it'll be 2024. I don't think is the year that we get there, but 2024 is the year that instead of, I don't know where the analogy is, honestly, if the analogy is from crawl to walk or from walk to run, but it's a transition year from super buggy. We're putting in new tech, things that we put in the game can break it for months. 318, 319 taught us that, right? But after 2024, I don't think there's many of those giant pillars that are going to come in and completely break the game down to nothing again. And it's going to, and it will be, it'll go from a walk to a run. Might not be 2024, but 2024 is the year that happens that gets us from crawling through walking to running. And running's where we want to be.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
think an example of that with multi-crew in particular is the focus that it'll be receiving in Arena Commander, right? That they're adding the multi-crew spawning, and so they'll test it out there for a while, it'll bake there for a while, and then eventually it'll find its way into PU, things that they're working on there. I do think that maybe we're not, like you put it, we're maybe not going to see that walk to run, but we'll start to see that crawl to walk in 2024, right?
100%.
And I think so much of everything that we're talking about, and I'm gonna throw it out there as the thing that I'm looking forward to the most, but also simultaneously the thing I'm most worried about for next year. And that's Pyro going live. If when they pull it off, and that we've got jump gates and everything that the Pyro entails, it's put in at its full scale, everything's rocking and rolling. It's probably going to be one of, if not the best feelings that we've ever had as Star Citizen players, if I had to guess.
I
If
agree
it doesn't
100%.
If it doesn't happen, though, if it doesn't happen next year, not saying that it won't happen next year. I'm confident that it will. But if it doesn't happen next year, that's going to be rough. It's going to be rough.
Well, yeah. If it doesn't happen, just as long as they get to server meshing within Stanton, I would be happy in 2024. If Person was on its own server and Ariel was on its own server, each planet, each moon, like we could go from space station to city. If we just got all the planets, moons, space stations, and cities on their own servers in 2024, then Stanton would have, I don't know, 2,500, 3,000 people in it.
It would
If
be a
we can
different
get
game.
to at least that. Yeah. People say that a lot of times, like when we talk about homesteads, and they're like, I'm just going to put a homestead on Microtech. Nobody's going to find it. And I'm like, yeah, now. But what if Microtech is dynamically server meshed up into sections? There's a if we just put Microtech onto a server right now, just Microtech, and there was no sectioning or anything like that, how many people could you fit in that server? 2, 3, 4, 500? I'm not sure,
Yeah.
because it's only loading Microtech. And trust me, when we start to get to these higher and higher populations, there's no such thing as really just hiding out in the forest. People will be out there with their scanners pinging for your stuff. 100%.
Oh yeah. And anybody that has played an online survival game before is going to relate to what you just said. You can think you're as well hidden as can be, but eventually somebody's going to show up. They'll find your base.
Yeah, it's guaranteed. We're gamers and we're relentless.
Yes.
Yep. And we talk about that server meshing, and we talk about populating this universe. And that's what I'm talking about with server meshing. If we don't get Pyro, as long as we get server meshing within Stanton, I will be super happy. Because when it comes to server meshing and how persistent entity streaming works with object containers, remember, any object container in the game can be allocated to its own server when server meshing comes online. And so we think about where Chris Roberts' dream is to have any building that you can see, you can go into. Now, anytime that you go onto a tram, anytime you go onto an elevator or anything like that, you could be allocated to a different server on the back end, but it wouldn't feel any different to you. And so in that sense, we could have entire buildings because they're popular. People live in that building. They don't do much outside of that building. You know how our peers are. We could be capping tens of thousands of people technically in Stanton, even though they're allocated on all these different servers based on what's going on.
That's the dream.
That's the dream right there, 100%. And that's kind of what I'm more excited about.
Yeah, that and replication layer. We haven't talked about that much today, but I think that, no more 30Ks. That is huge.
Well, replication layer is another step in object container streaming, persistent entity streaming, iCache.
Right.
All this stuff comes together. Replication layer is now replicating everything that happens in like a preloaded state, or like in the absolute smallest data packet possible. So that way, when a server dies, that replication can just replicate everything over to another server, boot it up, and then everybody freezes for a few seconds, and then they come back to life. But replication layer is how all interaction happens between servers. Also, it's not just about the 30K. It's actually how we go from one server to the other and not knowing it, so it feels like everybody's in one world.
That demonstration they did at CitizenCon was probably one of my favorite panels they showed off, and I was in
really tears.
Cool, really cool tech. Yeah. Salty Mike cried.
Chris Robert, yeah. So did I.
Yeah,
How
it
long
was
have we
awesome,
been
man.
dreaming about? That was my biggest question the whole time when it comes to server meshing. Are we going to be able to shoot from one server to the other? We can conceive of every other hypothetical situation in server mesh, and we can think of everything because there's elevators. You can go when you go through an elevator from the Habs to the Galleria, you could go onto a different server. You could have one part of a space station be fleshed out on that entire ring. So everybody inside of that ring, one of the rings of the space station is on the server by themselves, and you could have that all fleshed out with shops and living quarters and all this stuff. You could have hundreds of people in there, and then you go down to the Galleria. Boom, you go to a different server, and the Galleria is this big expanse of whatever a Galleria is that you need hundreds of people on. It's just an example, but you could have 1,000 people on a space station allocated to 5, 6, 7 servers, but you would never know the difference.
I am interested to see what that player number is per server when they do figure that out. Like how many people can they cram into a space station? How many people can they cram into New Babbage or whatever? Because there is going to be a cutoff point there, because you have to calculate the collisions and everybody's different networks and whatever. I'm not a game
100%.
developer, but there's got to be a certain cutoff point. So I definitely want to see what that point is and how many people they can get into an area before it breaks, essentially.
Right. And right now, with how small the play spaces are in the space stations in the city, there's no need to really break up like sections of the cities onto their own servers so you can fit as many people as you can in there. Because like you look at the spaceport, you imagine the spaceport and that entire player area in New Babbage, there's no reason to put more than 50 or 60 players in there. Once you start getting over that one, you probably technically could put hundreds and hundreds of people in there, but the play area is not big enough for it. So I think in a lot of these places that we have now in Star Citizen, there's going to be artificial caps, and it has nothing to do with performance. They could double, triple, quadruple the people in there, but then it doesn't feel right anymore.
Right.
So then we talk about dynamic server meshing and virtual server meshing inside of servers.
And we have to factor in NPCs too, because aren't they say they want
Yeah.
like, what is it, 10-1, 9-1, something like that?
Well, yeah. And that you got to look at. I mean, here in Stanton, NPCs to players are going to be like 1,000-1. But then you go to some star systems where there's not cities and space stations in that star system, the NPCs might only be 7-1.
Right. Yeah.
So that's not a lot of people talk about that 10-1 as a static thing, and I don't think it's going to be static at all. I think it's more of a metaphor. We are always going to be outnumbered by at least, it's saying we're going to be outnumbered by NPCs by a lot, because the NPCs flesh out what the universe is, especially when it comes to the economy, Tony Z, and how that balances. We're going to have 100 times more NPCs doing that economy, so that way we can have our economy inside of it and not break it, because our numbers are just not big enough to break it. But I think with this tech, that 10-1 NPC to human ratio is something that they talked about a decade or more ago without actually seeing how it could feel when we are here now 10 years later. And I bet you in some places we're going to be outnumbered 100, 200-1 NPCs to players.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of that is, not necessarily being, you walk into a Galleria or whatever, and there's 10 NPCs for every one person, but a lot of that is going to be in the background simulation that we don't see, like there's 100 NPCs trading Laranite from this location or whatever, but we don't actually see all of those NPCs doing that, but it's in the background economy that's what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. But any one of those virtual NPCs in the background, if you physically go to where they are doing their things to make the economy work, then you will manifest them into the universe. And if you interact with them somehow, shoot them or anything like that, and let them live, then they become a virtual NPC that lives in the verse and evolves kind of beyond just a background simulation. So yeah, all those NPC, there's no reason to have them I said manifested, but have them rendered. There's no reason to have them rendered unless there's humans around. But yes, they will be doing the exact same things, whether they're virtual or rendered. Yeah, 100%.
Gotcha.
The potential for this game to start to feel so very alive over the near future is so exciting.
Mm-hmm. Preachers.
So I do want to ask, so 322 went live today, and if you check the roadmap on the website, the only thing listed under 322 that hasn't been committed, that's still listed as tentative, is the replication layer. Do we think that makes its way still into 322, like in a 322.1 or .x patch at some point, or does maybe it's
not into live?
Yeah.
No. No. You've been around Star Citizen long enough to know the dreaded Christmas patch,
Right.
and I think that's literally the reason why it's tentative. Is they're like, okay, we're not gonna break it for Christmas, guys. You know. And it might come in. I don't know where they're exactly with the numbers and stuff like that, but to them, it's all about momentum and what's working now and what they're pushing forward towards. If the replication layer gets tested at all before Christmas, it's going to be tech preview channel. It's not going to affect live at all.
Maybe they'll wait till January 1st or 2nd, let people get nice and hungover and take a little time away from bright screens, and they'll slow release it.
Yeah. I think there's a gut feeling out there too that the replication layer is not the same as persistent entity streaming and stuff. I don't think it's going to break it in the same way. I don't think it's going to break. It's going to break. There's no way a tech that big can be, but I don't think we're going to go through months and months and months of these growing pains that we had to go through persistent entity streaming. Persistent entity streaming was all of the painful buildup for the replication layer to be able to happen, I think.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if we're going to get any more preview channel this year. I would like to think so, but I think once they go on break, we're not going to get a whole lot until next year when they come back to the office.
Well, and the way Jared worded things in today's ISC, he phrased it as start of next year or early next year is when it'll be back.
Yeah,
so he didn't give
Which
a date.
Is only 2 weeks away.
Right.
In all fairness, 3 weeks from now is early next year.
Yeah. They did talk about in the ISC episode today that I think it was a little confusing. I'll have to go back and watch it because they talked about the first half of next year and what all was coming. But before he went into that, I think he said what they're targeting for Q1. And I might be mishearing this, but I think he said the persistent hangers that they talked about at CitizenCon were aiming for that Q1 patch. Do you think replication layer is needed, like a thing they're going to have to get in first before they can do the persistent hangers?
That's very interesting. I never really considered the replication layer happening in persistent hangers. I always thought of persistent hangers as Star Citizen's version of instancing, kind of. So I don't know if that's here's the thing with the replication layer. If we're instanced inside of the same server, then I don't think we need replication layer at all. Then it's all about persistent entity streaming, iCache, that whole thing. But I don't think so. I don't think so, because I think the reason we would need the replication layer is to instant that hanger outside of the server that you're playing in.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because they talked about, when the hangar doors close, it's essentially going to make your hangar your own instance outside of the server that you're playing on. So I wasn't sure if
it's got
replication layer
Technically,
had
it has to
anything to
be.
do with that.
Yeah. Technically, if it's instanced in the game that we have, then it's going to be on the same server that you were playing on and going to go back to playing to. In order for you to be instanced like onto other servers, they might have entire servers allocated to just people that are in their hangars being instanced, right? But the only way to get from one server to the other is the replication layer. It's the gateway, it's the doorway, it's the information is literally copied over to another server. So I don't know. I really don't
Yeah.
know. I have no idea how to know what they are thinking, because it could, if they leave it on the same server, it could really hurt performance, because it doesn't matter if you're instanced or not. All of the physical things that you are loading up and playing with inside of your hangar is an entity on that server. So that's a very interesting thing I've never thought of. Maybe that is the exact reason why we're not getting them. It's because they're right now, that we don't have them right now, is because they know that they're going to have to instance them on another server. So they have to go through replication layers, so they're not bogging down what we already have. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's
So,
the thought
yeah,
process I had
yeah.
about it too. So I hope
Yeah,
we see more
yeah.
replication layer testing on 322 like early next year. I know they usually take they come back like mid-January to the office or something like that and have their big meeting and talk about everything that's
Well,
going to happen the next year.
And Squadron 42 is feature complete. There's no way of looking to the past to know what's going to happen in the future when we have all these new developers and teams now working on the persistent universe. I think old patterns are out the window.
Yeah,
Quite
that's
honestly.
true. That's true. We've only been feature complete for like what 3 months now, 2 months, and
Yeah.
we've already seen an uptick of updates, quality of life things coming to the PU. In
An
just that short
insane
amount of time.
acceleration, right? It's
Yeah.
insane. It feels so good.
And
The
I feel
derelict
like
settlements. Oh,
yeah, those look really cool.
oof.
But I feel like a lot of the Squadron 42 devs are still waiting for that, beginning of the year meeting before they get allocated to new teams. And we know they're going to be working on a base building in Q1 starting production. So I'm hoping with that sped up production timeline that we actually see some base building come in hopefully by the end of next year. I'm cautiously optimistic that we see it, but also the thing that's holding me back from it is, we need the tech and all the buildings and how it's going to work and all the vehicles.
The vehicles. One of my viewers just pointed this out to me the other day, is don't expect base building until you see the spaceships that are capable of building bases starting to come into the game.
Yeah,
like,
that's what
that is very, very simple, very genius. Yeah.
My thought process exactly, because, even if they finish base building and they have all the modules fleshed out and ready to go, if we don't have the vehicles to build them, it's not going to matter. So,
well, that's not 100% true too. I think CIG is willing to put anything through the multi-tool until they get something better. We could be building our bases with the multi-tool as a temporary option, the same way we're repairing our quantum drives with the multi-tool.
Chris, if you're watching, please no. Just hold it off. No more beams.
Well, wait. I would be happy with that temporary solution if it gets me to my home quicker, honestly.
Yeah.
Base building beams.
I would bitch about it the entire time, but I would love it.
I bet they start small, both in regards to the base building game vehicles that are introduced to the game and the base building itself, right? So at CitizenCon, they talked about how like you could have a land vehicle and build small buildings with that, right? So did they say the name of that land vehicle?
I don't think so.
Not that I know of.
I don't think they did either. But so, whatever that one is, I think that gets introduced and small buildings. And then they work their way up to something like, say, the Pioneer, right? I don't think that gets introduced immediately with the base building gameplay. I think they start small. And I think it makes sense.
100%. Like, did you play Subnautica?
I have not.
I haven't
Okay.
either.
Well, well, you build your bases with this little handheld multi-tool. I swear to you.
boy.
And it never crossed my mind to complain about it in that game.
Yeah, that's
Quite
true.
honestly, it just never crossed my mind to be like, yeah, there should be a better way to build these bases. I didn't care. I was so enthralled in building my base. I didn't really care how it happened. So I think CIG could, just to prove out the tech of the buildings persisting on the planets and not taking up too much frames and simply testing the modules, I wouldn't put them past them to start with the freaking multi-tool. I'm telling you, you know. But I think our first base builder is going to be the Galaxy, because the Galaxy is what they said is our hub of testing modularity. And to me, that's two
a good
birds
point.
with one stone.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
That's a really good point.
So one of the main reasons I upgraded my Redeemer to the Galaxy over CitizenCon, because as all
Let's
the
go.
things that we're going to do in Star Citizen, I think base building is going to be my main thing that I do. And even if I'm not building my own base, I think it would be cool, load up your friends. You got an org that wants some stuff built. They know that you're one of the best builders around. You got all the materials ready to go. You can do it safely. You can do it quickly, efficiently. They call you up. You load up all your boys in your Galaxy, your Pioneer, whatever it is, and you go build somebody's base, and then they pay you, and you're on to the next one. Like that's some of the gameplay that I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm so glad how they're handling bases too, because my biggest fear is the arc rust thing. When you're offline, somebody can destroy your base and steal all your stuff. I love how they're handling it. In high security, your base is invulnerable. And on a moon in Pyro, your base can literally be blown up.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, because for me, my personal base is my sanctuary. It's my place I don't want to worry about, and I want to store all the Pico trinkets that I find. And I don't want those to go away, and I just don't want to worry about it when I'm gone. Then the second type of base building is when you find a mining vein on a moon in low security, and then you build your base around there to get as much of that ore as you can as quickly as possible, but you have to worry about it inside of your org, inside of your community, and all that stuff. And eventually it's going to get blown up. Your stuff's going to get stolen. It's awesome. So we do have both worlds at the same time coming. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's a good way to do it, because I've spent multiple hours in games like DayZ building a base, stocking it out with weapons and equipment and stuff, and coming back the next day and, it's been ransacked and all your shit's gone, and you did all of that for basically nothing. But yeah,
Takes the wind out of your sails, doesn't it?
It really does. So, the way I play DayZ now is I just don't build anything. But after that experience, but yeah, they definitely, that's a good way they're figuring that out, because you have those people that want to be able to raid bases, they want to be able to blow them up and do that stuff, but you also have people that just want to chill and decorate their shit and not be bothered.
Here's the truth about it too. I bet you most of those players who want to go out and blow up other people's bases secretly want their own one safe somewhere also.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Because we all have this innocent gamer inside of us that wants to collect all the stupid shit we find through the universe and we don't want to lose it.
Here's a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Do you think, so we know you're going to have your own base, your own place to like do stuff, your persistent hangars, but do you ever think they'll do, like you can buy a hab at Orison, those nice buildings they have with the grass out front and the landing pads? Do you think that's going to be a thing they do where, you have your hangar, you have your hab, and then you have your base? Or is it just going to be, pick or choose, like more base, more hangar?
I think they will, 100%.
I think they have
100%. Yeah. Apartments, all that kind of stuff. I think 100%. And it's going to be based on how much money you can make. If you want 5 apartments, you can have 5 apartments. But you have to pay 5 different rents to 5 different people. It is what it is, But I absolutely, yes. I don't think you'll be able to own a lot on those platforms in Orison, but I bet you'll be able to own an apartment in those. And maybe far down the road, you'll be able to own buildings. That's way far down the road, but I guarantee your own apartment. And that's the thing about those platforms, though, is you can't land a spaceship and store it anywhere on that platform. So on all of those weird platforms that are out in the middle of nowhere, they're going to have to add hangars so that you can go into your persistent hangar, and then you can go out of the elevator of your persistent hangar into the building that holds your apartment. But yes, 100%. I do.
You think they'll sell them on the pledge store? You can also buy them in game. I have a feeling they might.
If they think they can make money off of it, yes, 100%. They will sell any. If they thought they could sell mineable rocks on the pledge store, and then you can just spawn them wherever you want, mine wherever you want, they would do it. You know? But
get your own mineable rocks in your home instance. $9.99.
Yeah. I never actually considered that with apartments, but you're probably right, because they sold hangar modules all by themselves. Remember the Revel in York hangar?
Yeah.
I bought one. Yeah. So I think, they'll have different, just like in Cyberpunk, right? You can have a small apartment, medium apartment, big, giant penthouse, right? So if they start doing that, yeah, I think they would. They're not above selling those 100%. $40 for a small, $60 for a medium, and $100 for a penthouse. And then you have what, LTI? You don't have to pay rent or something. I don't know.
LTI on your apartment.
Yeah.
I mean, it might get blown up, right? Not everywhere's Terra. So.
Well, that's true. I mean, yeah. That's crazy to think about. And destructible environments, of course, that's never going to be never ever going to be a New Babbage.
Yeah, I think that's going to be more of a here and there thing.
Yeah. So I think the places that there is going to be destructible environments aren't the same places there's going to be high rises with rentable apartments, you know?
Yeah, especially armistice zones, stuff like that. Keeps your stuff safe.
I hope they do, like they do building interiors for apartments in the cities. I hope they do the same things for the rings of the space station. You can live on one of those rings, right? And look out your window and look down on Hurston or something like that.
What if you built your own ring and then rented it out to other players?
Oh, they talked about that in base building too. They talked about building your own space station. My mind was blown. I'd never considered building my own space station.
Yeah, I
have no idea what that means.
I mean, I guess you could, run your org with it and, sell gas and commodities to whoever stops by. And yeah, I feel like they would have to regulate it somehow, because you wouldn't want, you have like your major spaceports above your cities and stuff, and they wouldn't want it encroaching on that.
Yeah. They'll do it the same way they're doing land claims, because land claims in Stanton, you can't just buy land wherever you want. You can't put your land claim wherever you want. Hurston Dynamics owns Hurston. Microtech Corporation owns Microtech. They are in charge of what land you can put your land claim on. But in Pyro, nobody owns that. So it's going to be the same. You could build your space station around any moon, anywhere in Pyro, and at your own risk. But it won't be the same in places like Terra and Stanton. It's going to be very specific.
That makes sense.
Very specific, I think.
Right. Pyro, your station would be at risk, so you would need to make sure that it's got its own security. But another system like Terra or even Stanton would maybe have zoning permits or whatever. That would make it to where you couldn't just pop up anywhere. But Pyro, for example, stays balanced in that, you could put up a station theoretically pretty much wherever, but those things are going to get blown up left and right.
Yeah. The only people that are going to do that are people that have 100 players from their org logged in at any given time. And another thing that it comes with when we're talking about property is it's not just about the lawlessness, and it's not just about the government. there's a gameplay thing that has to happen also, like, because the nice lake and river that's in Microtech, there's multiple rivers, but there's only one that ends in a lake and it's beautiful and it has all your space streams. I don't think CIG is going to let people claim the land right around that lake. 5 people are going to be able to live on the greatest land in Star Citizen, and then it's off limits to everybody else.
Yeah,
So
that
when it
was
comes
a
to
thing they have
physical
to-
features, locations, there's going to be places where CIG is going to just say, okay, Hurston says this is off limits, and that's that.
That's one thing Stubb and I have discussed, and I think they hinted at it at CitizenCon, but they didn't explain how it's going to work server to server. So if that lake, for example, if you plop down your land claim and start building your buildings right there, and somebody not on your server comes by that location, do they see your building, or can they put a land claim there? And then how does that work when 2 people are building in that same location, if they can even do that? So that's another big question they're going to have to answer before they get base building out, is how is it going to work with server meshing?
Yeah, with dynamic server meshing, I think it can work where only one person can own one piece of land, no matter what server that planet is loaded into. It is the way it is. There won't be 2 people who have the same land claim, and so they are always allocated to new servers if they're playing in the same area. I think that creates too much complication. So the land on Hurston is the land on Hurston, and it will be replicated as such across all servers. So when you go to a certain location on the planet, remember, we're talking dynamic server meshing, which is a big, giant conversation, hard for a lot of people to understand. But dynamic server meshing, I think a certain location, if you put down your habitat there, no matter what server you're allocated at any given time, when you go to Microtech and you go to that location, whoever owns that land, their buildings are going to show for you 100%. There won't be people building on the exact same coordinates on the exact same moon. It's once somebody claims that land and builds something on it, that replication layer owns that information for every server that's going to be replicated and says, no, you can't put your land claim there. It's already owned, because there's so much land in Star Citizen. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah, because then again, like, we have that lake right there, and you build right up next to that lake, and then you're like, oh well, I can't build around this lake, so I'm going to hop servers to go build around that lake in replication layers and server meshing. It doesn't work that way. You can't hop servers. So that's why CIG is going to take those hot pieces of land and say, no, you can't build there.
I think
Because, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just during the course of this conversation, I just had a realization of I've got a new profession that I want to pursue in Star Citizen, and that is real estate mogul. I want to buy up all the primo spots, and then in server chat resell those land claims.
Right. Well, why not?
I think you will
Why
see that
not?
though, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you do if you're the person that gets your hands on a really nice spot, I think you'll be able to. I don't want to say upcharge people, but make a profit off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that's why when Star Citizen sold land claims, they limited it to 10 land claims per player.
Very smart.
Yeah. So so the rich people out here in the real world couldn't buy 1,000 land claims. And then we have to pay them 10 million UEC for something that we should be paying 20,000 UEC for.
I didn't realize they had capped the land claims.
I believe they did.
Okay, yeah,
I've never
looked in. Yeah, I've never looked into any of that because too rich for my blood. But I'll get it in game.
Oh, it's my greatest regret. The only thing I never bought along the way with real life money was land claim, and they've talked about the land claim rush. The people who have bought them with real money, they're going to be able to go out there and claim land for like 1 day before everybody else.
Yeah, that's true. That'll be big.
My gut falls out every time I think about it. It makes me sick to my stomach.
You're going to have to go find your spot first and go defend it, not let anybody land there until you get your
Well,
land
that's a
claim.
good idea. That's a
Yeah,
good idea.
This is my spot.
Yeah.
So, well, we've talked about base building a lot, talked a little bit about pyro. Is there anything else in 2024 that you're really looking forward to? Even if it's something small, like a HUD update or something.
Oh, well, the other stuff that I'm looking forward to the most is them finishing our spaceships. When it comes to power management and resource management and atmospherics, things like that, I really can't wait until, when you have explosive decompression, stuff like that. Finish the spaceships is what I'm really excited for.
Yeah, that's one thing I've. It goes back to the multi-crew, the resource management. That's actually going to require you to have engineers on those larger ships when stuff's going wrong for them to fix while you're out about doing whatever you're doing. So yeah, that's probably another thing I'm really looking forward to is the resource management and the atmosphere and all that, because that's just another thing to drive players together and make them work together more.
Yeah, and right now multi-crew is mostly just about combat. And when our spaceships are finished, it's about combat and engineering, combat and medical. 890 jump is combat and chef, Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Stub, is there anything you're looking forward to next year?
Well, you know me. It's all the FPS updates, right? It's the updated scopes. It's the dynamic crosshair. It's the wear and tear that guns are going to have. Having to clear a jam, that sort of thing. That's going to be hitting the game. Just in general, I think those FPS combat improvements would be among my most looked forward to features for next year. And then right behind that, it's probably a lot of the UI updates that they've been showing. I'm really looking forward to cleaner UI.
Absolutely. And one thing that you mentioned the combat, and one thing they haven't committed to, but we've seen it on the roadmap and heard it discussed about a few times, is Bounty Hunter version 2. I'm hoping that gets in next year with the pods to put people in and maybe non-lethal takedowns. And we saw the handcuffs in one of the CitizenCon panels. So that's right now, because multi-crew is hard. There's not a reason to mine unless you just really enjoy it. There's not a reason to salvage unless you're just trying to enjoy it. So one of the most fun things for me and Stub here, we like to bounty hunt a lot. It doesn't make us money. We can't buy ships with it really. We might lose money doing it. But the player interactions are really what we're after there. And anything to make that bounty hunting game loop a little more in depth, and take away the god marker and stuff like that. And I'm really looking forward to that, because it's, as of now, one of my most played gameplay loops.
Yeah. Well, there is no bounty hunting in Star Citizen. It's all mercenary work, all of it. There is no bounty hunting. It's just a word that they put on it. Bounty hunting version 2 is bounty hunting version 1 to me. When you talk about, you mentioned handcuffs, and people ask, people, I see it in my chat all the time. They don't want to see handcuffs because they don't want to, be standing there looking at a sunset and somebody come up behind them and handcuff them, and then ruins your gameplay experience. Well, I think handcuffs are going to be somehow bound to the bounty. A handcuff, they're electronic. They'll only work on the person they're supposed to work on.
That'd be a good way to do it.
Or maybe any criminal. That's what I think is going to happen. Any criminal they might work on, but I think in place like Stanton, you go get a bounty, and then your handcuffs will work on that bounty, but they won't just work on a random person standing around.
Yeah. Or at least slap a CS on somebody if they're, running around cuffing people willy-nilly and for no reason.
That's not enough.
Yeah, we've learned that that crime stats usually aren't enough to deter people at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And handcuffing a player can really ruin his gameplay, where you give so much power to somebody else. And that's not what a video game like this, that's not what CIG wants. They don't want people to be able to dominate and bully, these kind of words. They don't want that to be a common thing. So I think they will 100%. Your handcuffs, it's going to disappoint a lot of people, but a lot of bad guys are out there going to be disappointed, but I don't think your handcuffs are going to work on people that they're not supposed to work on.
I think biometric handcuffs make sense
Yeah, there you go.
for Star
Yeah.
Citizen.
I have a
That's
friend
why
in
you might have to
particular-
go to the bounty office to get a bounty instead of just accepting a bounty in your Moby Glass. You might have to go to the office because you have to pick up the DNA imprint.
I have
There
a
you
friend
go.
in particular that handcuffs where you could just slap them on anybody would be a problem. So
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
yeah.
The potential for griefing is just too much.
Totally. And bounty hunting version 2 is where Tony C said we would see the virtual NPC version 1.
Oh, I
That's
didn't
when
realize
we
that.
that's when we actually start to see virtual NPCs going from the back end to the front end and all of that stuff. All of that stuff happens in bounty hunting version 2. It's a big deal. It's connected to the law system, economic system, replication layer, all of it. Bounty hunting version 2 is way bigger than most people know.
Speaking of something connected to everything, that I hadn't even thought about up until this moment, is I hope we see Reputation get a big boost next year,
Yes.
because I think eventually that's going to tie into every asset of the game, from medical to bounty hunting to base building, whatever. Just a simple example, maybe you're in a bunker now and you shoot a guard 1 or 2 bullets and you got to CS 2 or 3. But say you're over at Crusader and you have a rep 4 or 5 with Crusader security and you shoot a guard. They're like, oh, we know you do good work, so it was a mistake. We'll just dock your reputation a little bit. Stuff like
100%.
that, making medical beacons less of a trap, because I know some people try and get people to come
Mhm.
rescue them and then end up killing them. So some sort of like medical reputation where you're known for rescuing people, just all kinds of stuff like that. I'm hoping we see a big rework of Reputation, especially since they talked about it a lot for Pyro and how it works with the gangs, because I think we mentioned this in last episode. If they bring Pyro without the Reputation and all the gangs, that's going to seem like a swing and a miss, because you're supposed to be able to choose which gang you work for. That's where you can refuel. That's where you can get resources. That's where you can't go because you don't like the other gang. It all ties into that reputation.
Yeah, your permissions are based on your reputation. There's a lot of things in the economic gameplay that are going to happen behind reputation too. The way we do cargo might go away, buying all this cargo and then going somewhere and selling it. You might not be able to move large quantities of cargo for any company until you build up your reputation. So you might have a whole sea, but it's completely useless to you because your reputation is so low, they're only going to let you transport enough cargo that a Cutlass Black can carry.
That's a really big point that people bring up in regards to people are going to start to have different perceptions of their ships when we have reputation go online and when we have engineering gameplay go online as well, because of what you'll be able to do. So currently in the game, there's a sizable number of players out there with some pricey ships, some expensive ships that we've bought, and you can just load right in and you can do whatever gameplay is there for the most part.
Mhm.
But when reputation hits, like you were talking about, maybe not having access to all the contracts right away, now you're in a spot to where, say you've spent $500, just for example, on a ship, and you can't even access that gameplay right after a wipe because you have hours of gameplay to play through first to even unlock that tier of mission that that ship would be useful for. And I think that's something that people are going to have to start to consider more and more as we get closer to that, just because I think people are going to have some significant fleet changes as the game progresses just next year. And I think it's largely a good thing, but I think it is going to cause maybe a little bit of drama in the community. But hey, it's the internet. So
Yep. Yep. Drama doesn't faze me at all. Don't really care.
yeah,
Not to be heartless about it, but I don't really care.
right.
And the biggest way to paint that picture is luxury ships.
Yes.
Just because you own an 890 jump doesn't mean you're going to be able to throw a delegation party on your 890 jump because you don't have any reputation. You know, you're
Exactly.
going to have to do lower tiers just transporting important people in maybe a 400i, maybe a Phoenix, and you're going to have to do that, and you're going to have to build up your reputation before you even have the option to host an opera on your 890 jump.
I think that's maybe the biggest point also against Star System being pay to win, is because it's not like, okay, well, I've got an 890 unlocked on my account. Okay, sure, great. But as long as I still have to progress in the game to truly utilize that ship, it's not really pay to win, right? You're still having to work to use it.
100%. 100%. And I think that's going to be a reality, and a lot of people aren't
Yeah.
going to like it. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people forget that this is a game that wants to be played. The website citizen is not the game,
Right.
right? And you think about luxury ships. I mean, what's the smallest classification as luxury ship, right? A 100i? A Lynx? You know, you're going to own, there's people out there that own 3890 jumps. And when the game goes actually live, they're not going to be able to use one of those unless they grind their reputation for a month.
And have
It's
friends.
the way it should be. Sorry, say again?
And have friends.
Yeah, and have friends. Yeah.
Because with the resource management we were talking about earlier, those big ships, you're not just going to be able to, like right now, you can go solo an 890, fly it around, do whatever you want. But, resource management comes out, reputation comes out. You can't just go pull your big 890 and just go mess around in it unless you have a crew.
Yeah, a lot of bubbles are going to be burst. But I think there's a lot of people that didn't pay attention to what this game is becoming, what this game is going to end up like. There's a lot of people who are buying these giant spaceships that didn't see the end goal of it. And the truth is that it's better the way it is. It's better to have the reputation gateway, because the time that it takes for you to build up the reputation is going to be the time that it takes you to build up the money to buy a next level luxury ship. And then with that next level luxury ship, the time that it takes you to build up the reputation is going to be the same time it takes you to build up the money to go to the next luxury ship. And that's the game. And it's going to be fun and beautiful.
It's the one we all dream of.
Yeah.
It is.
So pay to
It
skip.
really is.
Yeah. It's only pay to skip now.
Well, we talked about hopes. We're getting a little long here on time. We can mention it briefly here. Is there anything you're worried about 2024? Anything that if they don't deliver on, or any concerns?
No, at this point right now, I'm as patient as can be, because this game is way more amazing than any other game. And here's the thing. You imagine, I know where I can see where this game is going, and it's got my patience meter on 10. Because I know that it doesn't matter if they get all the things I want out in 2024, we're still getting to that big, giant dream video game. I know we are. And my analogy for this is Skyrim. Everybody loves Skyrim. It's great, beautiful, fun game. Imagine if you had to play that game at every stage while it was being developed. Imagine how hard that would have been to walk around in the forests of Skyrim, and there's no wolves, there's no trolls, there's no sprites, there's no dragons, but wow, look at the trees. You know what I'm saying? You can go down in the caves and there's no skeletons and there's no draugrs, but wow, look at these caves. There's a lot of people that, if they got to play that game through those stages, would lose faith. But we saw what Skyrim became at the end, right? and I think I can see what Star Citizen's going to be at the end. So my patience meter's on 10.
Yeah, I'm hope we get a good year next year, but we've been waiting this long, so what's
we can wait
another
longer.
year? Yeah,
Yeah,
as long as they're
what's
getting
another year?
done, as long as we're seeing
Again,
progress.
yeah. The pillars are still being built. Replication layer, the replication layer to dynamic server meshing is pretty much the finish line of the major pillars being built that allows the game to happen. So I don't think the game fully being allowed to happen is going to be here until 2025-ish.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think that if the progress and momentum that we've seen in the game just in the last couple months is any indication of things to come, I've said it before, but I think 2024 is going to be a banger year for Star Citizen. I think it's going to be probably the biggest year for the game, not just financially. I think that'll be part of it. Right. They just recently had their biggest sales day a couple weeks back. But in terms of the game coming together,
Mhm.
I think 2024 is going to be us not seeing a completed Star Citizen, but really truly seeing huge strides.
Yeah. I think 2024 really marks the end of the actual growing pangs that we've been going through for the last 10 years. And then after we get through these growing pains, we're going through growing pains as we develop all this stuff. And I think we're in that last little bit of the real growing pains. And once we're through that to replication layer, dynamic server meshing, then the game will actually launch. And I don't think that's going to happen until 2025. But I'm excited about 2024, of course, all the stuff that's happening, but it's still stuff being built. I mean, 2024 can't be looked at as an aha year. We still don't have a creature in the game that has any point at all, And this game is going to be populated with creatures that can't happen until we get server meshing replication layer. So 2024 is still in growing pains. I don't think it's our aha year yet, but I think we're getting close.
Definitely
It's
getting
exciting.
there. I think this last free flight was probably one of the best I'd played. So even in terms of performance, 318 was terrible, but we've seen a decent uptick in performance this year, and I think we'll see even more next year. And like you saying, I don't think it's going to be the aha year, but maybe 2025, 2026 will finally be that year that, normal people, I guess, people that aren't obsessed with the game start to try and play it a little bit more.
Yeah. I made the analogy of Star Citizen being, like going to the moon. It's the same. This is the same kind of thing. When you talk about going to the moon back in the 60s, it took a decade, 2 decades 3 decades of tech being built for them to go to the moon, and then actually going to the moon and back happened in a very short amount of time. We're still building the spaceship that goes to the moon. And I don't think 2024 is the year that we launch, but I think it's the year that we finish the spaceship.
I agree. Well, I think that's all I've got for next year. And anything else, Stub?
Now I'm just concerned about Star Citizen being developed on a sound stage this whole time, that none of it's real. I'm just kidding.
Somewhere in a Hollywood basement.
I mean, have you paid attention to the shadows in ISC? Those shadows aren't sitting right in that room behind Jared. I'm just saying.
I haven't. It's funny.
Look into it, people. Wake up.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's about it. I'm really looking forward to next year and seeing the pieces not only continue to fall in place, but hopefully at a even faster progression than they have thus far. I'm I don't want to put myself at too much risk of being overhyped for next year, but I'm really truly excited for 2024.
Me too. 100%. But
All right.
like I said earlier, I don't think it is the year that we're actually playing Star Citizen yet, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
not
get
quite.
to that point where there's no more wipes and 1.0. It's definitely not next year, but you
Yeah.
can feel it getting closer for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, Skyrider, thank you again so much for being on the show with us today. Our first ever guest. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. I
You
really
are
liked you having you
welcome.
here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
That was
a lot of
amazing. That was fun.
ton of fun, lots of great insights. If you would once again let people know where to find your content.
Captain Skyrider on Twitch is basically the only place I make any content. Of course, like everybody else, I've got Twitter, X, whatever it's called, but primarily Twitch America morning. I'll be there.
Yeah, and
Good
we'll be
deal.
sure to put the link to your Twitch stream in the episode description down below for anybody as well.
Appreciate it.
And thank you again for being on the show, Sylvius. Thank you. Had fun as always. We'll be back again next week with another episode of the CommLink Podcast. In the meantime, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, hit that bell so you get a notification for every new episode as it releases each week. And thank you for spending your time with us. Everybody here, thanks so much. It was a great one. And here's to 2024 and the dream coming true for the PU.
Yes, let's go.
Thanks,
All right, be
guys.
safe,
It was a lot of
everybody.
fun. Yep.
Yep.
Be safe.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye. See you, YouTube.
Ciao, ciao.
See you next time.